Hey, what's up, everybody? Welcome to another edition of Walking This Ways Impact Voice Podcast. I'm your host, Furman Jackson Jr., along with Anna C. and our featured guest, Mylira Green. Sorry about that, everybody. I'm just getting over this little bug, but the show still goes on. But this is another Tuesday, of course. This is already December the 20th, 2022. Hope everybody got everything done. Very excited about the upcoming year. We know that Christmas is this coming weekend, and a lot of times, people are getting to spend time with their families, friends, loved ones on this holiday that's coming up. So you actually got time with your families and your loved ones, and really cherish that time, because you never know when you're going to see each other again. Because we know tomorrow is not promised to us, so we always want to make the best out of every opportunity that we get for those we come in contact with, those who be friends with, those who become family members with. So that's what it's all about. So we're very excited to have Mylira Green with us tonight. I had her on the show, it's probably some years ago when I was doing Blog Talk Radio. And I reached out to her. She gladly accepted the invitation. And I'm thankful that you accepted it. And you with us tonight with me and Anna as well. And big shout out to Anna also in my hometown of Mobile, Alabama as well. So that's what it's all about. So Anna, you have anything you want to share, with the audience that's watching this? Because we all live stream, of course, on Facebook Live. So you like, share, comment, get the thumbs, get the hearts up, and get the comments up. If you have questions, put the Q in the comment section. We love to hear from you. So Anna, go ahead and take it away.
Absolutely. So glad to be back on the cast of Walking His Ways Impact Voice. It's been a wonderful weekend, a wonderful week, as I might like to say. But as we get close to Christmas, I just want to drop, of course, some financial nuggets, some financial planning at your fingertips. I know all of us have probably done it. We've overspent. Every year we say, we're not going to do it, and we do it anyway. But there's always a way to bounce back. After we get through this holiday, it's going to be the absolute best time to refigure, remaster your budgets. Okay, let's take a look at how much money went out. Let's assess how much is coming in, and let's regroup before the new year. Let's go into 2023 and be our best selves. Let's be better spenders and bigger givers. But that really starts by having a handle on what you have and knowing what you have. And in order to do that, we need to utilize a financial spending plan. List out your liabilities versus your assets. And if you can do any trimming before this year is out, now is the time. Let's go back and check all of those subscriptions that you may not be using. And let's commit to cutting off at least one of them, right? How many times do we start something, we get that 7-day trial, and we totally forget about it? Pull your credit card statements, pull your debit card statements, and look for that unnecessary charge. Let's eliminate some of that before we roll into 2023. Really prioritize your spending. Start looking at, do you actually need all 17 streaming services, or can we get by with just 1 to 3? Let's cut back on that. If you're not going to actually utilize that gym membership, you can reduce it down or cut it off. That's going to be my end of the year tip to you. Let's get a handle on our spending. Let's get organized and prioritize, and let's make sure we're spending our money on the things that are either going to protect us or make us more money as we go into New Year. Let's make sure we have a fully funded emergency fund. That's going to be number one. Okay, let's make sure that we have adequate life insurance. Let's make sure we're saving for our retirement and investing in our future. Those are my financial tips. I can't wait to get into this conversation with you, Miss Green.
And awesome stuff. Thank you, Anna, with the latest financial tips and stuff. We know the holiday season's on here. We know bills still gonna keep coming in. We know stuff still going on. And like Anna said, I always want to put a budget together. I always have a plan, because this stuff is important, knowing where your money is going. And you brought up an interesting point, Anna, with the subscription. We know you have Paramount Plus, you have HBO Plus, you have
Hulu, Netflix, Peacock, Tubi. It's so many different streaming services, Disney, ESPN, and they have all these different things. We try to break away from generic or basic cable because it started becoming so costly. And so they still got us by these individual subscriptions. So let's get wise. I told a good friend of mine, something that I always do when I'm preparing for a big goal or challenge, I cut off all of my subscriptions. They're a distraction and it's a small sacrifice that I commit to. So I say, until I hit this goal, I'm going to cut off my streaming services. And that pushes me to focus and commit and get it done. Because I say I want to watch my shows, but I'm not going to turn that streaming back on until I hit my goal. I always believe in work and then reward in everything you do. It just makes things more fulfilling. You know, you don't want to just work, and then you start to have resentment because you're not really living the life you want to live as you live it, right? So I always say, do something for yourself. If you hit a milestone, if you hit a goal, if you do something that you commit to, reward yourself. And you know what those rewards are, and you know if they're adequate. But with every reward, there needs to also be consequence and sacrifice. If you don't commit, if you don't fulfill that, what's going to be the repercussion? That's why I said, oh, I'm cutting my TV time down, okay? I'm going to commit to X, Y, and Z so that whenever you see me go on a trip, that's because I hit a major goal. I done paid off some debt. I done increased my savings. I've helped a family, and I'll reward myself.
Yeah, and it's a very important stuff. Also, I want to talk about, paying your bills on time and paying your rent on time. And I know there are programs in place for you to better see and shoot your credit score up when you pay your rent and stuff on time. Do explain that to people who may not have no knowledge of that.
Oh, well, I have heard of services that will report things for you, but I always tell people, let's avoid unnecessary fees and costs. Sometimes people reel you in with, pay me and I will do this for you, when it's actually things you can do on your own. Sometimes people don't have enough things reporting or showing up on their credit to say that they have established credit, right? So versus paying someone to report that you've been paying on something that you can do that isn't very costly. You can do things like, if you don't qualify, you can get a secured credit card. You can get that, of course, through your bank, your credit union, things like Capital One. There are some major companies out there that will provide you a secured credit card, which will report to all 3 credit bureaus. And you put a small deposit down, you utilize the card, you make payments, you pay it on time. And after 6 months, if you pay it back, your own money, of course, it will increase your credit limit, and those kind of things help you as well. But keep in mind, when it comes to your credit, everyone's situation is different. Okay, what you need on your credit report may not need to look at that person, because they weigh you in different categories for different percentages. It's going to be, do you pay your bills on time? They're going to look at the number of inquiries you have, the length of your history, your credit history. How many open accounts do you have? What kind of accounts do you have? How much available credit do you have? So everyone's credit report and what they actually need to be focused on is going to change. My best suggestion would absolutely be, get with a financial coach, someone like myself who can look at your personal situation and come up with a plan specifically for you, because what you need on your credit to shoot it up may be different than someone else. You may need to dispute some things, pay some things down. You may need to open some line of credit when someone else may need to close some. So definitely don't Google your way through the new year. Sit down with a professional who can come up with a strategy and a plan that fits you and the needs of your family, whatever your objectives may be.
Yeah, because we know the holidays are here. We know bills still coming in, and we know a lot of times,
Everything going up but my
and
paycheck.
I know, and people trying to play catch up the first of the year because they got so much debt, buying all these gifts and everything else.
Yeah,
And
overspending.
so be mindful what you spend, ladies and gentlemen, and like Anna said, get some coaching, get someone who's knowledgeable in that arena to help you, and reach out to Anna as well to get the help that you need to start off in the new year. Start off on the right track. And like you said, it makes sacrifices too. You're gonna have to cut some things off. That's another thing. You have to let some stuff go, right?
Let some stuff go. And also always, keep your options open when it comes to increasing your income. Sometimes you can't save your way out of disparity. It's just reality. sometimes what we're earning isn't sufficient because we're in a deficit. And sometimes in order to build, we need to increase our income. We need to increase the money flow coming into our house. So you can trim down and save and reduce and budget, but you don't need to deprive yourself of things. Sometimes you just need to put a little hustle behind you, and you might have to pick up a couple extra hours or create something passive. I try and encourage every individual to understand how money really works and get into an ownership position. It doesn't matter how large or how small, we all can be business owners.
And awesome stuff. So hey, ladies and gentlemen, take an opportunity. Don't get tongue tied. Take this great opportunity that's being broadcast here on the show tonight, and take it, run with, apply with it. There's a lot of great information that's laid out on the table. If we don't apply this great information, it's just done in vain. It's right before you. Grab the information, make the necessary steps, make the necessary changes, and then start with you first. And you're like, you know what? It's well worth it. So we're very excited about Mylira. Of course, she's with us. Like I said, I had it on here on Blog Talk. That was like some years ago, and reached out to her. She glad to accept the invitation. And like I said, very excited to have you back here on the podcast. Introduce yourself to the audience that's getting to know you for the very first time here on Walking His Ways Impact Voice Podcast.
Absolutely. Well, one, I just want to say thank you, my brother, for inviting me on your platform. I do not take that lightly. I'm grateful for that. My name is Mylira Green, and I'm a native of the Hampton Roads area of Virginia. I am a certified complex trauma professional that served as a licensed clinical social worker. Now I got the fancy name out the way. Honestly, I'm just a child of God serving his people, his children, to let them know that they are enough, to lower the rate of suicidality around the world, to make sure nobody feels like that they're alone, to help people understand that some things aren't truly a diagnosis, it's really just trauma. So I'm just trying to educate people the best way I can, and being an example of Jesus' love, being an example of God's love, and reminding individuals, if you have a brain, you have a mental health, and that means that you got time to do something with that. And if I can be the one to provide that education, that knowledge, and that support, then that is what I'm here on this earth to do. So that's what I'm here for tonight.
And that's what's up. And just utilizing what you're doing. You know what I'm saying? You are a mother, you're a wife, your husband, y'all work great together. And that's a beautiful thing to see spouses working together to reach a common goal. And that's what it's all about. And the work that you're doing in your community back at home. And you got a lot of interesting work. And I know you work within the social
work.
Social work. How did you get started in social work?
Honestly, by accident. So my senior year of high school, I started out with being sexually assaulted. And as a result of that, I went through probably the darkest year of my life. I was always a girl, made straight A's, no problems, no issues. When I look back, I did kind of live an interesting life, but we ain't gonna talk about that because my parents may be watching. But that year, I didn't make any decisions for myself. And I had said since I was like in 7th grade that I wanted to be a teacher. My mom was a teacher, so because I was so depressed, I didn't put any of my applications in. My mom did. The most I did was sign the bottom of the application so we can send it off. And she happened to say, hey, you have a mentor that's been helping you, and y'all are very similar, and I think that you should do what she's doing. And I was like, okay, whatever. So I ended up getting accepted into the Evelyn Armstrong School of Social Work at Norfolk State University, following the footsteps of one of my mentors, Miss Otelia Ponton-Reed. And I want to say school saved my life, because again, I was in such a dark space. But when I got to school, it was me learning who I was on paper. Me learning how to hone in on my skills of helping people and being empathetic, and realizing that people aren't the problem, it's their environment and the things in their environment that they need to change. And from there, I literally went all in. And when I say all in, social work is my life. I train social workers because we're not just eligibility workers. We're not just working in CPS. I'm a whole entrepreneur in these streets. I'm a therapist. I'm a mental health professional. I train people. I talk about self-love and confidence. I love to bring my ministry aspect into it and being able to show people how to really show up authentically to make an impact on people's lives. So although I did not plan to be a social worker, I now look back and I realize that God had a plan in it in the entire time. And I still teach in some type of capacity because I'm always providing what we call psychoeducation on very important topics and subjects. So that's kind of how I got into social work. I will say you cannot teach a person how to be a social worker. You can only give them the tools. So I was born this way. I just now have learned the tools to effectively communicate what's really going on with people so that they can understand it in a way to make a change.
Man, that's what's up. And you mentioned that you were sexually assaulted. How did you cope with that? And not only that, how did you express to your husband that had happened to you years ago? Because I know when we go through trauma and we end up being with someone, they may do something, it'd be good intent, but what happened, he was a bad intent. How do you go and explain it to your husband, and how did he understand it?
Man, that's a big question. And the reality is, since I could remember, sexual play has always been a part of my life. I was introduced to sexual things at 3. So the sexual assault, which is kind of like the cherry on top of the ice cream that I've been eating on my entire life. So for me, that was my trauma. That's how I knew how to communicate. That's how I knew how to share, I love you. Even to this day, I'm realizing me loving people is attached to intimacy. So I even have to be very cautious when it comes to creating connections with males specifically, because although I want to be this safe place because of my knowledge and my expertise, there's still this trauma that sometimes comes up that I have to make sure that I'm very strategic and intentional about when I'm working with people. Now, when it comes to me and my spouse, before we even got married, I remember it was our first Valentine's Day, and we both came in with our own version of sexual trauma. So we already talked about that already. We knew where we were coming from, and we wanted to make sure that we provided something different. But what I did, which one of my friends think I'm crazy for, but I wrote a story to my husband telling him every person that I specifically was with. Or I described some of the decisions that I made as a result of my trauma, trying to find love, trying to just get people to love me. Because another piece of it was not only did I have sexual trauma, but I was diagnosed as morbidly obese at the age of 13 years old. So now you have this piece where sex is the only way I know how to communicate. But then I'm this girl with a beautiful face, big body. So I kept hearing, girl, you're beautiful, but I will never make you mine. So in my mind, it's like the only way I can get attention is this. So there was a lot of things that was happening there. And my husband appreciated it, because what I told him, I said, I don't know what I'm going to be in life, and I don't want to be somebody's president. And I got these people coming out the woodwork. So I know her. And you like, how they know you? You know, because I told you. So that's kind of the mindset that I had. And we had to deal with our own traumas, and we talk about this all the time together, honestly, where the first couple of years of our marriage, my husband acted as if I was temporary and not permanent. And there was moments where wife had to be put to the side, and best friend was like, yo, homie, what's going on? Because you still texting, you're still entertaining conversations. And that took growth. It took a space of, okay, God, let me take a step back and really look at why you blessed me with this person. Why did you choose this person for me to be with? So we healed together, because we had to have those conversations. Like, hey, this is not coming from a place of me trying to hurt you, but this is coming from a place of my own trauma, my own things that I have dealt with in my life, which makes me make certain decisions. So I think it actually helped in our marriage because it forced us to communicate about those topics and conversations that most people won't talk about. And I tell people it's not condoning adultery or none of that, but we've never stepped out. But those conversations, we need to talk about it. And even on my side, same thing kind of popped up. I lost 100 and some pounds. So now I got attention and I'm liking it. It's like, yo, okay, what's up? And we had to have that conversation. I was like, yo, homie, like we need to come together and have a conversation because I don't want this. And it literally helps us. So when we're working with different couples and things like that, we can talk to them about how to build a solid foundation, how to have those difficult conversations. Because if you want to do forever, you can. If there's no abuse there, if there's no safety concern, and you said you want to do forever, you can have those tough conversations, but you got to deal with your trauma and your mess first. And we both go to therapy separately. So it helps us as well just continue to heal. So it's a continuous process, but we just communicate about it.
And that's what's up. And the thing about it is how y'all both was willing and just look at self and see what self as. You say, you know what, I could do better and I will do better. Anna, you have anything you want to ask Mylira?
Absolutely. When I heard you say you and your spouse, y'all both attend therapies and separately, I just know we come from a culture where we're hearing more, we're seeing more. It's okay. Mental health is real. Let's address these things. Let's go to counseling. But we also come from a culture where it was frowned upon, looked down on. No one wanted to be recognized as crazy or, oh, you don't need that. And we would ignore the statistics and the suicide rates and the amount of depression we had and failed relationships because we haven't been taught coping skills. So with you being in that profession, how strongly do you feel about the need for us to go to counseling and therapy and get help for traumas that we're not acknowledging?
Man, I feel like every person needs a therapist or a life coach in a specific space of where they're trying to grow. So the way that I like to say it is everybody needs a trash can or a safe place to share. And as much as some people don't really agree with this because, it's the space of you got your family, you got your spouse, you got your friend, that family member should not be your trash can reciprocal. They should be the person that you're building memories with. So you want to have someone who has the expertise to really get you through that space. When it comes to the Black and Brown community, a lot of us don't like to talk about slavery because it's the space of everything didn't happen in slavery. Well, this one it did. We were taught how to serve, but we were not taught how to be human beings. So then when we had the opportunity to come together and be a family, we then replicated some of the behaviors that we saw within our families. So then you had molestation, you had Papa was a Rolling Stone, you had different things going on. But the fear was if I share what's happening in my home, now I'm going to threaten this family that we worked so hard to get. Like I got whipped to be with my family. I got pulled apart to be with my family. And you telling me I got my family and you want to say that my husband touched you? Oh no, baby girl. Oh no, little boy, go and be quiet. So we were so afraid to mess up this new culture, this new space that we had. So then it created this, what happens in this house stays in this house. And then also, I'm not remiss, I know the history of social work. It was not great. We have Virginia Satire, which was one of the people who were one of the leaders in the asylum. So when the United States created asylums, what it was a lot of people, especially people with money, did not know how to take care of their family members that had certain diagnoses. And back then, we just either you were normal or you were crazy. So if you were crazy, I ain't dealing with you. And what we did was we built these homes. And I tell people all the time, especially in my area, we have a local university that still has one on their actual campus that you can go in and visit. But they used to lock them into like these closet type rooms and things like that. So Virginia Satire was like, hey, we can't do that. That's inhumane. We can't just hire nurses and we're not doing nothing here. So she created the field of social work, but it still wasn't what we know it as now. So when we're talking about Black and Brown community, that wasn't even created for us in that space. So now we got the aunts and uncles and cousins that we don't want to talk about. Don't bring their name up because we don't want anything to happen. And it continued to perpetuate this thing. So now it is so imperative and so important for us to have someone that we can share our thoughts and feelings with, that actually has an expertise that can give you tangible things, not just from their experience or not just because of what they think, but like, no, they took time and years to study the brain, study how to shift, study how to heal trauma, study how the fact that most of us have diagnoses that we do not have. And then when we get these medications, we're making it worse because the medications we're not supposed to take when you have trauma. So, and especially in the Black and brown community, they're quick to put autism on us. They're quick to put ADHD on us. But as soon as they get that stimulant, if you have a trauma, it literally dumbs down your prefrontal cortex. So we're literally making it worse. But if you go to someone that's like myself and you start to talk to me and we start to dig deep, then I can be able to do this integrated approach to help you get into your body, to help you heal from your trauma. And even if we don't talk details, I still need to mesh your body with your mind. So I 100% believe that everyone, and even if you are okay, like I'm a therapist that go to therapy weekly. There's going to be times where I actually need it because I have my own traumas, and there's going to be time where I'm riding it out because I'm good. I dealt with that thing, but I still need a safe place to say, hey, this is what I'm experiencing at work. This is the stress that I have as a mom. This is the stress that I have as a wife. Because in society, if you feel anything other than grateful for being in these roles, you're looked down on. So if I tell you that motherhood is real hood right now, and if I can send them back to sender, I will. I need to tell a therapist that I can't tell the real world that because they're going to look at me like I'm crazy. If I have to tell somebody, look, I love my husband and I said to death do me part, but I'm tired of telling you the same thing. I need a therapist to talk about that with, not someone that's not going to understand. So I think if we can get what therapy is, it's not about going and sitting on somebody's couch. Now, some people have that, but what therapy should be is give you an experience so that there's a transformation on the other side of it. And then for me, what I have done is I'm just not an expert, but I'm on the other side of the trauma. I'm on the other side of suicide attempts. I'm on the other side of this stuff. So I learned these things to heal me. I learned these things to help me. So now I can help you do the same thing because I know what it feels like to be hungry. So I can feed you because I know what it feels like. So I think if we can just normalize that, if more people that look like us was trained and not just Google scholars that's doing podcasts and TV shows, because I went and I Googled search, no, people that actually took the time to get degrees and certifications to really understand what's going on with our people, because Black and brown people, we also have the epigenetics. Slavery didn't just go away. Like that stuff got passed down generationally because nobody dealt with it. So you got to be the one to decide, am I going to keep it going and let my kids keep the same thing, or am I going to change it? And that's what therapy should be for, is to change that space.
We definitely need a safe space and a place where we don't feel so judged. We live in a culture where what others think of us, no matter what people say, it matters. So you don't want to be the angry person or the bad mom or the bad spouse. And so we compress things and we put it in a box over here instead of really dealing with what we're facing. So I definitely think it's a space, and I'm with you when you said we need more people like us in the industry, and not just that industry, but yes, you're absolutely right. We need more people who look like us, we can relate to, who speaks our language, so that we can help more of each other. And that is something that I feel very, very strongly about. Like with your work and social work, how long have you been in this field?
For 8 years.
Okay, 8 years. When you look at where you are now, what you've done over the course of these 8 years, what's your ultimate goal? What are you trying to achieve? What will your legacy look like? What's your mission?
Man, my mission is to eliminate suicidality across the board, literally. Because suicide is the most preventable source of death that we have. There is 130 successful suicides every single day in the United States. When I looked 3 days ago, we were already at almost 46,000 people. We were at 45,974 people. That was the same day that Twitch took his life. There is no reason why that number is continuing to increase. So that's my mission. My ultimate goal is, when I first became a social worker, I had no idea what I was going to do. I didn't. I just knew I wanted a master's degree, and I said, just in case I end up somewhere that need a license, I'm gonna go and do that. And I thank God that I ended up doing that, because I have done so many things in social work, and currently right now, I am one of few that is an LCSW, that is a business owner that's not necessarily a private practice. I work for private practices, but that's not my business. I actually try to make sure that I create spaces and places for the workplace to deal with people and their mindset. So I have created my own personal and professional development program. That's 8 modules that really build your confidence. I have my I'm Enough movement that I have, that my hope is, if it's that one person that's 1 second away from taking their life, but they happen to see me on the street and read my shirt that says I'm enough, that gets them through one more day. Ultimately, I would love to get into the Hollywood spaces, not just because I want that title. That's not even it. Like, I don't even care about, like, you ain't even got to know that I'm in there. But what I want to do is, those individuals of that level of influence, when they get to a dark space and they take their life, it doesn't minimize the other people who have done it. But I think about Twitch, right? This gentleman had millions of people attached to his purpose that he took, regardless of what happened. I'm not here to judge him. I don't know what happened, but there's millions of people that was attached to him. There were people that looked forward to Ellen just to watch him. There were people who watched So You Think You Can Dance. There were people that looked at him and his marriage to get them through, right? So now you have this big entity that was attached to millions of lives that took his own life. And the question is, what happens there? So I want to be the person that, when you are of a level of influence and you don't feel like it's okay to say I'm not okay because of the role that you play, that I can be that safe place that you can dump your stuff at without judgment. I can help you navigate and keep you alive one more day. So then the rest of us can be okay too. It's the same thing with our music, with what we watch, what we listen to. If I can get people in Hollywood to go back to who they originally were, imagine the change in the TVs and stuff that we watch and we listen. So my purpose is so much bigger than a title, than a role. It is really so that God's people can go back to seeing who they truly authentically are before they were given a title, a status, or any of those things. Because you can still be of influence while still being yourself. So
Right.
that's really my ultimate goal, is to just show up for the world and serve God's people, and do it in such a way that when I die, my life is going to be talked about because I did it God's way and not somebody else's way.
Right. That's what's up right there. And I know people are now becoming more open now. Back in the day, people weren't even talking. You know, people just kept their mouth closed, but now people are becoming more open now to communicate. And you see the progress of it now, where nobody was saying anything, but now people are saying something now because of fear, the judgment, worry about what people gonna think, what they gonna say. But how do you help people cope with that? Don't get past what people may think about them, or how they may look upon them if they share certain things that they have experienced or may be going through.
Well, I try to lead by example. Transparency and integrity is how I live my life. And sometimes I can be transparent to a fault. So now in this season, I'm learning how to move in silence and learning how to decide what things to kind of share. So for me, it's definitely leading by that example, where I'm not fearful to share things. Like, I get asked this question numerous times, especially people in my profession. Like, hey, Mylira, are you ever afraid you're gonna get your license taken away? Because sometimes you're a little too raw, you share a little too much. And I say, well, if it gets taken away, then it's just not meant for me to have it. I'm still gonna do the same thing that I'm doing right now. It just won't be, with my license. So that's the first thing I've done. The second thing that I have done is, like I said, I've created my personal and professional development program that really is for that purposes. Like, you can come to me to be your coach, but the one thing that stands me out from most coaches is you ain't gonna get in my seat and tell me your goals until we can break down where your goals came from. So what we do is we go through a series of you learning what all life has in store. Like, life is just not this one dimension. We actually have 6 of them. We have our spiritual dimension, our mental, our emotional, our physical, our social, then our cash flow. If I don't have something established in each of those, I'm already doomed first. So we need to take the other people out and really become face to face with who we really are. We talk about acknowledging the truth, which is your path is your own path. Other social workers' journey is not going to look like mine, and I can't expect it. Other Black and brown people journey ain't going to look like mine. I can't expect that. We all have our own story. And then once we can acknowledge that, it allows for that person to embrace what makes them different. Because a lot of times we are in imaginary competition. Like, we create the competition because we don't see our fit in life. So I help people see their fit. I help people learn what their personality is through the Myers-Briggs personality test. Because once you know your personality, you can know that there's some strengths and weaknesses that you just naturally have. And if I can learn how to embrace those things and walking that. So that's where I start, is I really allow for that person to get to know who they are. It's not about anybody else. That's why I tell people, like, you ain't gonna come to my session and talk about your spouse all day long. If that's the case, I'm not your therapist. If you're gonna come to me and you're gonna talk about somebody else, no. So that's kind of how I do it. I get them comfortable with that. And then I use my transparency by asking for permission. Like, I'll ask in a session, hey, do I have permission to share something with you? Because I want to make sure that that I'm going to share something personal, but I'm sharing it with a purpose. So I'll give them this really brief 1 minute, like, hey, blurb, and I'm gonna bring it right back to them. And that normalizes for them, like, hey, if she can do it, then I can start sharing my story. And then also helping them with that. So we do some things that's called like a trauma narrative. So you have the opportunity to share it in this safe place where I'm not going to judge you, and you can read it as much as you need to. So by the time we get to the end of your sessions, you're comfortable with your story. Like, can't nobody tell you about your story. Right. And that's kind of how I've been helping people utilize their voice to help other people as well.
And that's what's up. When I want just to ask that one, the communication, the trust, setting the atmosphere where they can be comfortable and be able to relax, where they can be able to share what's going on with them. A lot of times people do stuff for other people, but what about just doing it for you? I want to make another, okay, I want to make another income, but just do it for you. Everything should start with you first, and just don't do it to please people or be accepted. Because if you do that, then you basically lost. But learn how to do the things for you. And another thing I want to talk about, learn how to take the mask off. A lot of times we portray different things. People still have masks on. We play this one thing, and then when we're with everybody, we go back to that natural state. How do you help your clients cope with that? So I know people really want to be organic, but they struggle with that because they're afraid of what they're going to think or what they're going to say. How do you help your clients cope with that?
Well, number one, I let them understand that rejection does not exist externally, only internally. The external is confirmation, it's not rejection. So if I myself cannot accept me for who I authentically am, I have already rejected me from the spaces and places that I find myself at. So then when I'm talking to somebody and they say something that reinforces what I've already told myself, it's just confirmation. which makes me say, well, I need to change who I am. I need to do something different. And a lot of it is we don't even realize that 90% of all people deal with some form of trauma. And trauma is a thing that now people are starting to understand, but I don't think we understand it. We think it's these big T's. And when I say big T's, we look at national disasters, people who went to combat and war, sexual abuse and assault, big tragic accidents. Like that's what we think of. But people ain't really bothered by that per se. Like we have those individuals, but the people that I see on a normal basis are those who actually have complex trauma. And that means that in their childhood, they experience one incident after the other. And no matter if it was small or big, and when I say small, it could be the time that your mom couldn't give you food for a whole week because y'all ran out of money. That was trauma, even though it was normalized. That time where you went to school and you didn't like the school lunch, but your mama had a new boyfriend, so she made him food first, let him eat everything and told y'all to wait. That's a trauma that now I'm walking with. So what I try to tell people is I normalize their experience for them. So I don't even, for me, I don't jump into treatment. Like I'm really a different therapist. Like if you're gonna come and you work with me, I need you to embrace who you are first. Like my main thing is I need to teach you how to deal with your present before I can even bring your past into this thing. And no matter if I am a trauma professional, I just do it a little bit differently because you need to understand only this moment right here matters. That moment of victimization was in that moment, but what people don't understand is when that trauma happens emotionally, you stop growing at the age that it happened. So for me, I still got 3-year-old ways because my trauma happened at 3. So I try to normalize what people are experiencing first, so then they can see, wait, I'm not crazy. There is something that happened to me. Then we can talk about the mask. I'm gonna let you keep your mask a little bit for a little while because it serves you, it's keeping you protected until I can get you to stabilize in this moment. Then we'll pull the mask off and we'll say, okay, well, why do you do this? Now let's deal with this first. Why do you do this? Now let's deal with this first. Go ahead, Queen.
When when you say mask, so a couple of things come to mind, but the first thing that I thought about was when you're dealing with people who don't realize that they've been through a trauma. Like you said, when we think of trauma, we're grouping it with certain and so a lot of times people say, well, this didn't happen to me, that didn't happen to me, I didn't die, this is normal, these things happening. So how do you address that with someone who doesn't realize or that they have trauma or that they've experienced trauma?
So for me, it's education across the board. I'm gonna educate you. If I have knowledge in my brain, I'm gonna give it to you, number one. But also, I'm very person-centered. So there's going to be some clients that come to me that's going to give me the bare minimum. I've always dealt with anxiety. No, I didn't have any trauma. Everything is fine. That can be their initial assessment, but Mylira is always assessing. And because of the type of therapist that I am, and most of it is telehealth, which has been a benefit, at least for me, I incorporate so many different things. So it gives me time to hear your words, look at your words, meaning your facial expressions, how you deal with certain things, and really hear what you say. So even if in the beginning you tell me you haven't had anything drastic or traumatizing, by the time we get to the end, we realize it was something that happened that has triggered this behavior. Our behavior is for 2 reasons, 2 reasons only. Number one, to keep something going or to stop it from happening. And that's with everything that we do. So if you know that there's a behavior that you don't like, then me as your clinician, I'm going to give you time to get to that point. But once we build a rapport enough, then I'm able to share something. Like, for example, so for me, very, very briefly, right? So I've learned how to ensure that even when it comes to diagnosing people, I'm very sensitive about some of the diagnoses that I give. Why? Because most people just throw depression, anxiety on adults. And then when it comes to kids with behavior issues, we just throw autism, ADHD, oppositional defiant disorder, conduct disorder, and not one time did anybody ever ask this kid, do you still think about some things that happened to you in the past? Do you find yourself sometime going to sleep and seeing people's faces? Do you find yourself going into environments you don't want to be around that family member? Like, people don't take the time to do that. They just look at the presenting behavior, slap a diagnosis on them, and that's it.
Yes, I feel like we live in a culture where we're overdiagnosed, we're misdiagnosed, given prescriptions we don't need a lot. And sometimes it feels like we're neglected in the medical industry, and it's just taken advantage of. We don't get the proper treatment that we need, because sometimes you do have to do a little digging, and that's why a lot of times we're like not treated properly for the things that we're experiencing.
Yeah, it's really sad. So there's this thing that's called complex post-traumatic stress disorder. So we know PTSD, right? And most people think about combat and war. But there's a complex component to that took them forever to even put in the diagnosis manual. And what that is attached to childhood developmental issues or things that happen. When you have a trauma, it literally changes the composition of your brain. But the cool part about the brain is there's this thing that's called neuroplasticity. That means that I can still develop what I need to develop. Now, what's happening is if you do not take the time, and then they created the ACEs study and all these things that people are supposed to be using, but let's be real, we're not. Our waiting list is bananas. Some people don't get their psychological until 1.5 years, 2 years after being in a waiting list. So by the time you get to me, all I know is the symptoms that you had. And because I'm human and I work in the medical profession, I already think I know what you got. So I'm not going to dive any deeper. So that's where I come in. Where I come in is I hear what you said and you just spit all these diagnoses to me. Anytime I hear anything more than 2 diagnoses, my red flag goes up and I say they had trauma. So before I even put a diagnosis on them, Mylira is quick to put adjustment disorder, even if that adjustment happened some time ago. And I know sometimes people don't like that, but I need time to see what's really going on with my client. Because what we do is medication wise, there are some medications that actually exacerbate the trauma. So for example, if we give a kid who has experienced multiple traumas over and over again in their household, between poverty, between abuse and neglect, between bullying in school, between all the things that they deal with, right? And now this kid is starting to act out and they're trying to get attention in class. We smack ADHD on them. What do they give them? They give them a stimulant. A stimulant actually makes the trauma impact on your brain even worse. But that's what we do. So when you understand that difference, for me, I try to make sure that I get to know the client before I give them a label. There are some diagnoses that I don't even get unless you get a psychological. So you are not going to get Mylira to diagnose you with bipolar. You're not going to get me to diagnose you with schizophrenia. Even if I see you have forms of psychosis, there's some rule outs that we need to see. Prime example, I've had a client who actually has a traumatic brain injury. I'm not a medical person, but because I've surrounded myself with so many experts and conversations, as she was talking, I was like, baby girl, you don't have depression. You were just in a really bad car accident and they misdiagnosed you with a concussion. That's why your memory is shot. That's why you can't remember certain things. And I said, we're not even going to worry about your mental health right now until I can rule out this medical concern that you have. So I'm just going to be your safe place. Come every week. We can meet for 16 minutes, 53 minutes, whatever you need. But we need to rule this piece out, because if I gave her a medication, I could have made it worse.
Right.
So that I feel like if we have more people that was slow to put a term, but then I also need to speak for some of my colleagues as well. Sometimes that's hard for us because the only way we get paid is through insurance. And insurance companies right now, what most people don't know is there's some diagnoses they ain't gonna pay for. So I can put unspecified to give me some time to really get to know what's going on with this client. But if I hit this client with unspecified, guess who get the bill at the end of the day? The client gets that bill. So now I gotta pull something out So then it's this catch-22 of how do I get to know what's really going on with this client when insurance company is telling me I have to have specific diagnoses for them to pay for this service. And if the client get caught slipping and we don't know they changed it, the client gets that super bill, not us. So is this space, like the medical profession has to do better. And this is the whole reason why I end up, instead of getting my PhD in social work, I'm getting into organizational leadership, because it's the big organizations that's the one that's making the policies. They don't have people like me sitting at the table talking about what insurance companies should and should not pay. They got the people that's looking at the bottom line, the money. They're looking at how much medication can bring in economic wise. They're looking at how we can do certain, it's a bunch of big policy. So when you have someone like myself that's trying to do it in a different capacity, that's the one reason why I did kind of switch to the coaching space, because it's like I love being a social worker, but there's so much red tape that I have to go through to just even help people.
The politics of it all. I was just going to ask you, but before I have to run for my next call, in the instance where, what resources do people have or would you recommend? Because outside of fear and shame, which we've already addressed, we don't want to feel embarrassed by seeking counsel or going to therapy. What options and resources do people have? Because a lot of times people say, well, I can't afford anything like that. I'm not rich. What do you recommend for people?
Absolutely. So there's different groups of people. So you have those individuals who are just completely uninsured. Most states have what they call community services boards, and sometimes they will call them like behavior intervention or things like that. But most states have these. So they're state funded mental health facilities. And because they're state funded, they cannot turn anybody away, whether you have insurance or you don't have insurance. So the cool part about it is they have this thing that's called same day access, and most of their websites will tell you the times and days that you can use their services. You go in and you get a complete assessment done, and they'll link you with the proper resources that you need. And then if you do need insurance, they do have people that can help you get what we call gap insurance, help you get connected with Medicaid, Medicare, whatever it is that you need. They are supposed to help you with that. But until you get that, they're still supposed to see you because there's funding that's been provided for people who are uninsured. So that's one aspect. And then there's some nonprofits as well that have a pocket for certain individuals who don't have insurance that they can see. So like refugees, immigrants, individuals that cannot get anything. And another piece that some people don't know about as well, if there's an emergency situation, and you are like a refugee or immigrant, you can call Medicaid in your state and request for an emergency Medicaid depending on your circumstance. So for example, I used to work in dialysis, and some of my clients, they had green cards, but between the mix, there were times where they still couldn't qualify for regular Medicaid, but they got emergency Medicaid to at least take care of their medical necessities and things like that. And this is stuff that people really don't know, because if you don't ask, nobody's just going to tell you about it. So that's for people who don't have insurance. For our students in college, most universities now have access to this free platform, and I'm pulling it up on my phone so I can tell you what the right one is called. So it's called Timely Care. And really all you need is your university's Gmail account. And most colleges is doing it as free of charge. It's 24/7. And with this 24/7, you can have video calls with a professional. You can do phone calls with a professional, and nobody in the university knows. It's just you and this app, unless you interact with like the community that they have up there. But that is free of charge. All you need is your email address and set up your account, and you can set up appointments. And the dope part about it is it's not just therapists up there. They have wellness coaches. So if you're trying to lose weight, they got business coaches if you're trying to start businesses. So it's other resources in this thing that is free of charge. That's all you need. And then if you're someone who still want one-on-one, most universities do have a free counseling department as well, with licensed professionals that do therapy. And because we are held to confidentiality, no one should know that you are receiving that service. So you can go to that counseling center, get some help and support. So that's for my college students. And typically it's anybody who's in school. So it's not just for undergrads, it's for undergrads, graduates, certificates. So if you just have that, you have it. Now, if you do have insurance, but yet your copay is too expensive, then you can ask for like a sliding scale. So sometimes we have sliding scales at different places. Another piece that you can kind of do as well is just sometimes reach out to that professional. I don't know about any other professions, but for social workers, we are called to do some pro bono work. So there are times where I will see people for free of charge. If you need something, I normally give my number, so I guess I might as well do it now. It's 757-609-0694. And I tell people to give me a call. It's nothing for me to link you with what I know, who I can help you with. You can also use Psychology Today, because sometimes you just don't know where to start. Psychology Today makes it where you put your zip code in there. You can put what type of insurance you have, and you can filter this thing down as much as you want to. You can put the problem that you're looking to do. You can pick what type of race that your clinician is, what gender they are. If you want someone who has a religious background, you can put that, and they'll give you a list of all the people that's in your area. And what I also would say is, even if you can't find someone in your area, a big rule of thumb is look at the entire state. Pick the areas that you want somebody to come from, because as long as that therapist is licensed in the state in which you live, they can see you virtually. So even if you can't find someone that is that's going to help you right now, shop around. Finding the right therapist is like trying on shoes. I've been in therapy since I was 17 years old, and it took me 6 years ago to find the right therapist. So for me, I tried on many shoes. Some was good, some was not, some was short-lived, but now I have a really great one that I see whenever I need to see her. So that's what I would suggest, those different pockets. Again, if you're uninsured, you got the community services boards. If you are a student, the colleges now have resources out the yin yang for you. If you have insurance, go into Psychology Today. And then even in the capacity of you just rather pay out of pocket, you have different platforms now, like BetterHelp, that gives you like subscriptions. But for my financial person, she's probably like, don't do that. But they do
No.
where they can pay monthly and they can pick what type of service they want. And sometimes you can just text if that's all you want, and just someone to go back and forth with. You can do phone calls, videos. So there's a lot of different resources out there. You just have to know that they exist, and you have to have someone like myself that's willing to answer your questions, because the biggest piece is just getting over that fear of, how do I know who to go to? These are my symptoms. So how do I know what type of therapy I need? I'm willing to answer those questions for you.
Right. Lack of knowledge is something that will hold you back in any industry, in any category, no matter what it is. So when you were saying that, a lot of times I don't know holds us back and keeps us captive. And it, of course, I automatically think about finance. Like, you never want your financial situation to stop you from getting the help you need and that you deserve and that's adequate, right? And so I always tell people, I talk to folks, have you ever thought about grief counseling? Have you ever thought about family counseling? And sometimes those aren't even an option or a conversation up for discussion, because we never even thought about it because of our financial situation. It's so important to set the foundation, get your stuff in order so that you can offer your spouse, your family, yourself, the best version of you. You want to be able to take care of yourself. And if you need resources, they are available. Man, I know I personally have enjoyed this conversation with you, Mylira. It's been great. And I just want to know, how can we support you? Like, tell the audience how we can reach you, find you. What do you need from us? How can we support you before I tell you good night?
Absolutely. So right now I own M Green Enterprises LLC. I will say that God is doing some shifting. So come April the 8th, my birthday, I have something big that is happening, where I'm finally saying yes to what he desires me to do. So the way that people can help me, honestly, is keep sharing who I am. You know, it's not even about the finances for me. Like I already see where financially I'm gonna be blessed because I want to be a blessing to other people. So that's gonna come. My thing is I want for people to know that they're enough. I want for people to share the videos because some people don't know where to start. Share the phone number that I always give out. It goes directly to my phone. It's a business line, but it comes directly to my phone. So you get me, you don't get anybody else. And what I will say is, again, just keep sharing, keep being a resource. I did a video on suicidality on the Michael Collier show this past week, and you know, people was like, I've never heard it broken down like that. So for me, is that space of just keep sharing. Because this is not about me, man. This thing is so much bigger than who I am. I am not on social media right now, but January 1, I will be back. I'm a Facebooker. So if you are a person who like Facebook lives and inspiration, that's where you can find me at. I'm the only Mylira Green I know out in these streets. On TikTok and Instagram, I'm Mylira Transforms. My website is www.myliratransforms.com. My email is info@myliratransforms.com. Honestly, all I will say is if y'all know an opportunity, tell me about it. And then also pay. Listen, like I said, it's gonna sound like an oxymoron, but here's what I will say, just from my heart, right? The same way that we can pay to get our hair done, our nails done, our favorite shoes, we could put different stuff on our credit cards that we want, whether that's a ticket or I want to go to a show, I want to do this. Pay for people to come out and educate your community. Because I've been doing this now for 6 years. And for 6 years, majority of what people see that I do have been pro bono. But doing this thing full time, I have a family that I have to take care of, and people got to pay. So the one thing I will say, sometimes, as much as I'm not doing it for the money, I still got to provide for my family. And it's really hard for me to share things on different platforms if I'm not compensated to make sure that my family is good. So that's what I will say. As a community, let's invest in people that actually have something to say. Don't just pick somebody from Hollywood to come to your event and you pay their $10,000, $15,000 just to come speak for 30 minutes, but then you have someone like me that actually has the knowledge, that went to school for this stuff, and you don't want to pay. Like, we got to do better. This is not even just about me. This is just across the board. There's so many people who are knowledgeable that's getting out of the game because they can't afford food and shelter and water and clothes. So let's make sure that those individuals get the financial support and backing of our community before we go and pull celebrities that not gonna remember who you are in 2 hours when they go to their next event.
Right. I've definitely enjoyed talking with you. I hope to connect with you at the beginning of the year when you come off your social media hiatus. I can't wait for April for your birthday to hear your big announcement. I wish you nothing but success over your life, over your business, and for your family. And I want to say personally, thank you for what you're doing in the community. You matter and you're making a difference. I love the movement. I'm enough. I can't wait to talk to you again. Furman, another great episode. Y'all too, be blessed.
Thank you.
Appreciate you, Anna. Thanks for everything you're doing. And Mylira, thank you once again for taking time out your productive schedule to hang out with us tonight on the podcast. Hope what was said tonight would benefit someone. I know this is going to be on our YouTube channel. I know we're going to have clips up on TikTok, Instagram, a couple of clips on Facebook as well. What final remark do you want to leave to the listening audience that are listening right now and those that will listen in the near future?
Oh man, what I've been saying recently is a broken crayon still colors. And sometimes we can get jealous off of the coloring that we see people doing, but we don't see their brokenness. So before we compare ourselves to any person, let's not count ourselves out. I am the same girl who was exposed to sexual things at 3, was sexually assaulted, dealt with depression, survived a suicide attempt. I am still that same girl, but it did not change my purpose. It did not change my value. It did not change my worth. And it doesn't change the voice that I have. It didn't stop me from learning. It didn't stop my education. It didn't stop me from showing up. So if it didn't stop me, don't allow your story to stop you, because broken crayons still color. So go out there, and with the little bit you got, keep going until you begin to stand up and be whole again. So that's what I want to leave you guys with today.
And that's what's up. And once again, thank you, Mylira, for hanging out with us once again. Another great episode that went out tonight here on Walking His Ways. Impact Voice. Sorry, excuse my voice. I know I was a little bit under the weather, but I'm getting better. The show still goes on as well. But most importantly, we'll be back here tomorrow night here on Walking This Way, Impact Voice Podcast. I will have the Corn back with me. He co-hosts with me on Wednesday nights. We're going to be back here Wednesday night, same time, of course. And most importantly, man, y'all share the episode, get the hearts up, get the thumbs up. And matter of fact, hit that star. You hit that star, we get money for what we bring out great content. So hit that star, and Facebook pays us for doing content. So man, get the support. It's all about support each other. You know, that's what we have to do, support each other. So we're gonna be back here tomorrow night. Enjoy your night. Be blessed. Be at peace. And most importantly, just stay focused. And also I want to say this. Remember the graveyard. Everybody had one thing in common. They thought they were going to see tomorrow, and they didn't. Remember, let's live life like it's our last. And most importantly, love yourself. Take your favorite drink, whatever you drink. Look yourself in the mirror. Tell yourself, I love you. Tell yourself, I got your back. Tell yourself, we're going to win. Tell yourself, we're going to succeed. And most importantly, say we are already winning. Y'all have a great night. See y'all tomorrow night here on Walking His Ways, Impact Voice Podcast. Peace, everybody.